Would you look who just got sentient on Saturday morning? Here's your look at the NECA Toys Toony Terrors, Megan. Bring the fun of Saturday morning cartoons to your horror collection with the adorable little creeps of Toony Terrors, NECA's line of stylized horror icons. Standing at approximately 6 inches tall, the Megan figure joins the Toony Terrors line. The figure comes in blister card packaging with bonus cutout backdrop. Cutting up the rug and a boss while she's at it. Before, of course, we get a closer look at the new Toony Terrors Megan, the tape measure is in fact telling us that she stands at about 4.5 inches in height, or she's about 12 centimeters tall. Seeing as we are, after all, looking at a killer doll, let's bring in the original Toony Terrors Chucky and his booked-in bride Tiffany on the other side. I think, first of all, this is a reminder to us of how long overdue we are of a brand new Chucky Toony Terror release. One that doesn't necessarily need to have his bride tag along. I think, in fact, we could probably get ourselves a new Chucky from maybe a Child's Play 1 or a Child's Play 2, where I think, based on what they're doing now with the much better-looking head sculpts on these Toony Terror releases, a brand new Chucky would be well received. The figures are, from a size standpoint, I don't know how accurate this would be. I mean, obviously the ones on either side are a lot smaller figures with very more limited articulation. The newer Megan not only has a better looking sculpt, but she has much better articulation than some of the earlier Toony Terrors. Megan's sole accessory is the guillotine blade she rips off the paper cutter during her dance number. Now, I have used many paper cutters in my years, and don't kid yourself, those things are quite deadly. But not as deadly, perhaps, as the one that's been bought here for this office. I mean, I don't know how thick this paper needs to be, but the one that she rips off looks like she's now wielding a machete. It's nicely been molded here in gray plastic, and usually is the case when we get these Toony Terror accessories that they add a nice little bit of reflection. It's actually on both sides of it, while the handle has been painted in a nice chestnut brown. It can be in her hand, although it's only going to be in this hand. The other hand is just a relaxed hand. Now, you'll notice that I've got the figure displayed with her arms back. The way they've actually posed her, you can kind of see she's leaning a little bit front forward like this. If you kind of have the arms back like the way I have right now, it sort of can throw off or kind of counterbalance some of the stability issues that she may have. Though you can take the blade and just fit that into her hand like this. It just slides fairly easily in place, and then you can have the figure displayed with it. But if you have the figure, say, forward with her arms, it does, she still stands, but you can see like she gets a little more front heavy. I think honestly the easiest thing is just to kind of have the arms back a little bit, and that seems to bounce her just a little bit better. Don't worry though, she does also have a peg hole in the bottom of her feet, and even though she doesn't really come included with a display stand, I just happen to have myself a black DC logo, black NECA stand just off to the side here. I think this actually came included with one of the other Toony Terrors, although its identity remains unknown right now, at least for me. It just plugs onto the bottom of her feet, just like that. Yeah, if you did want to use yourself a display stand just to give a little bit more stability. I'm just using one that came included with one of the Toony Terrors. You could use another one from NECA and just plug onto the bottom of her feet. I don't think that the size for her hole is smaller, that it wouldn't accommodate a regular a NECA display stand. So I'm just having to use the one that just came included with one of the Toony Terrors. Again, I don't know exactly which one it was, but yeah, it does give her a little bit more stability when it comes to her standing. The thing about the figure, though, is because her legs are displayed the way that they are, sure, yes, there is some additional articulation that we'll talk more about in a moment. So if you wanted to get her in more of that dance number pose, you could do it, but it's going to come at the risk of how well you're going to be able to get the figure to stand. You sort of always have to have kind of her dress leaning back like this, or having her back leaning back, where the front of her dress is kind of leaning forward like this to kind of give her, get a little bit more stable stance. For the head sculpt, though, I do really like the way that Megan turned out here. I mean, again, it looks a little bit more realistic of a head sculpt than maybe what we've gotten with earlier Toony Terrors. Progressively, NECA's gotten better with these Toony Terror releases. I mean, some of the recent ones, like the Reanimator, for example, had a really stellar-looking sculpt. But if you date back to like some of the earliest stuff, we just brought like Chucky in, for example, as a comparison. And here's Chucky right here, for example. Chucky definitely has a much more dated look to the head sculpt. More simplified on the design for the head, certainly simpler when it comes to the paint as well. Megan definitely does have more of the colors accurate to that of the movie. Nice long curly hair in the front. Softer plastic also here as well, so even though the hair is going to be a little more in the way of things, you can still easily rotate the head back and forth. We'll talk more about the articulation in a second, but really nice looking head sculpt. I do hope at some point we get a battle damaged version where she has, of course, the mangled face that she gets in the later end of the movie. I hope we do get that as an eventual release of a Toony Terror. The dress is nicely done here. It's got that nice pastel sort of cream color that she has for the dress, sort of the mint striped tie that she has in the blue and the red and the white, and nice striped sleeves down the sides as well. You know, again, even though she has pretty much the standard level of articulation for Toony Terrors, and that usually is like ball joints for the head, the shoulders, and all that, one thing that was nice to see is the fact that she did actually have some additional articulation for the torso. Because what they could have really only just done is just made this staction where like the top of the dress was attached to the lower half of her body, where you wouldn't be able to move it back and forth. But it does seem like they've put in a ball joint so you can sway it back and forth. The thing about it though is, again, any little swaying back and forth does throw off the balance of her. I do wish that if at the very least they could have included a display stand so that you didn't necessarily need to start pulling from ones you have from before, just so that, you know, again, if you wanted to get her in a little more of a dance pose number, like if you want to bring her head forward like this, just kind of lean her off to the side like this, you could pull it off. But yeah, not including a display stand, I think is maybe where the figure suffers the most. Now, for her articulation, it is going to be that she has a ball joint, so you can rotate the head back and forth, up, down, and yet again, you can rock it back and forth this way. Arms do rotate all the way around. She does also have hand articulation too, which was something also I really was pleasantly surprised to see. This hand also does swivel back and forth there as well. So right there alone, you have 1 point there in the head, 2 in the shoulders, 2 in the hands, so there's 5. But then a surprise as well to see that she also had the ball joint here, where you can move the top of the waist all the way around. So again, you can have the back, you can have the torso leaning back like this, you can have it leaning forward, you can also rock it back and forth as well. There is no leg articulation, there's no ankle articulation. One thing is I've noticed is that the ankles are pretty soft, or the legs as a whole are pretty soft in plastic. Paint's pretty good, other than I've got one little marking right here. It kind of looks like she's been bit by a vampire. 2 little fanged teeth. I don't think it's supposed to be on the character. Not that maybe I missed something in the movie where Megan just happens to have 2 spots on the sides of her leg. They're nowhere to be found anywhere else, so I'm thinking it's probably just came off the factory just with a little bit of paint problem. And again, like really nicely painted shoes there as well. Like the figure's painted really well. The only thing I would say though is that she has a little bit of standing issues. Again, you can bring the arms back just a little bit. That really, honestly, just by bringing the arms back can really help to counterbalance the fact that the figure is going to have a little bit more stance issues. And again, like you can rock her back and forth, but by even just having the arms always in a back position like this is really the best way to ensure that the figure is not going to fall forward. Unless you just happen to have yourself a display stand. I still wish I could actually remember which Toony Terror I pillaged this from, because I have so many of these. But yeah, you could also use this one. You could also use yourself a NECA display stand. Nice looking Megan, though. I really like the way that this one turned out. A good, strong, actual wave of Toony Terrors that we'll be looking at in upcoming reviews. This Toony Terror wave also happens to feature the Fiend and also features the Tarman. So a lot of good stuff that we're going to be looking at some upcoming reviews. But if you are a big fan, though, of Megan and really like the way that she looked in the movie, I like the way that this one did turn out. I do hope, fingers crossed. Oh, there she goes, taking a tumble. I do hope, though, that at some point we get ourselves a battle damage release of this. I can't imagine that really NECA would have to do all that much different than what we already get right now, keeping probably the body about the same and just mangling up the face just a little bit nicer. I don't know. I think if you're going to get a Toony Terror with as exaggerated of a posture as Megan, at the very least they could have come included with a display stand. Now, thinking that and wondering if maybe I may have overlooked something, I went back to the packaging, and sure enough, wouldn't you know it? No, she didn't come with a display stand. What she has at least, though, is the next best thing. She has one peg hole on the underside of one of her heels. And even though she doesn't have one, you could use a display stand that NECA has released if you bought yourself like a stack of those. I have a stack of those. I just happen to use one from a Toony Terror for the meantime. But you could use a NECA display stand. Luckily, she does have a universally sized hole in the bottom of her feet. I mean, it would be really big of a bummer if she had a smaller hole than that. But you would then think if she had a smaller hole in the bottom of her heel, then she would have also come with a very unique display stand. Sadly, like I said, she doesn't come included with one. You have to, unfortunately, have the figure kind of always in a pose where the arms are further back. Kind of does throw off, kind of counterbalances some of the stability issues that she has with the posture that she has for the lower legs. The lower legs, though, I mean, I do wish that they were a little bit straighter, but it's not a deal breaker. I mean, you can get the figure to stand. I mean, hey, I don't even have the figure on a display stand right now, and I've got her rotating on a turntable, so it is doable. You can get her to stand. You just have to kind of tweak a little bit of the pose that you got the figure displayed. Now, while I may have to hold out, unfortunately, a mangled face for Megan when it comes to Toony Terror release, anybody that's probably been following this online already know we are going to be getting an ultimate release of Megan that is, in fact, going to come included with an alternate head portrait. super excited for that. We are also going to be getting a sequel for Megan, so if you haven't had your fill for this killer doll and certainly want to see more, we are going to be getting a sequel for that. And hey, you know, the future may be bright for Megan. At maybe some point, she might even find herself being in a Versus movie with Chucky. Could you even imagine that? I know they sort of have thrown that around as a rumor online. I think the likelihood of that probably happening is probably slim to none. But you can imagine a Megan and Chucky team-up movie, or even a good guy versus whatever Megan ended up being, a collaboration between the two companies. That's probably never going to happen. It's just more wishful fan fiction than anything else. But what do you guys think of Megan? Let me know down below in the comment section. Have you guys had the chance to pick up this one for yourself? This particular wave, by the way, of Toony Terrors, strong wave. We are getting the Fiend from the Misfits. We are also going to be getting the Tarman from Return of the Living Dead, and Vincent Price thrown in there as well. So lots of good stuff coming your way, guys. The key to make sure that you're not missing out on anything that's coming up onto this channel. First, if you enjoyed the video, I want to throw it a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and you certainly do want to stick around for more, hit the subscribe button down below. That's always important. Turn on the bell notification. That's equally important. But the most important thing is make sure you're coming back here on a regular basis. Want to check out some more Toony Terrors? Okay. Popping up at the very end, your wish is granted. At the very end of this video will be also a playlist, not only covering off NECA, but also covering off Toony Terrors. There should be a couple of playlists popping up you guys can check out and watch at your viewing pleasure. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.